So, Peter, what's it like waking up in the morning being the CFO of one of the biggest companies in the entire world?
Well, the first thing you do is you wake up and your wife says, "Can you please get the kids ready?" So that's the first thing. It is a big responsibility, and I think it's not just that BHP is a big company, but it's such an iconic and such an important company. And it's 130 years, so that is a big deal for me. I am an accountant by training, actually, and I did a chartered accountancy. And then I went into investment banking. So I've had two basic careers.
So did the second career help you think big? Because accountants often think micro, don't they?
Do you know what? So I think that investment banking really taught me a few things, which is sort of get to the point, get things done, hugely professional organisation. But coming into BHP was something else altogether, because I got into operations. And so I spent 10 years in operations, and that was really incredibly challenging but fulfilling, because you're touching all the people in the organization. But I was privileged to spend 5 years in South Africa running manganese, and then 5 years in Chile running copper. And so now you're actually having a big impact on the country itself, and you've been part of the countrywide debate. And so I think that was really, really something.
So how many employees does BHP have?
It has about 60,000.
60,000.
Yeah.
So when you started in that 60,000, did you ever think you would make it to where you are now?
I didn't really think like that.
No.
I just wanted to come and do a great job. And they gave me these opportunities, and sort of one thing leads to another. I've never been somebody who says, okay, well, this is my career path and so on. But you just back yourself and get on with it.
Do you feel the pressure of the shareholders of BHP? Because there have been some controversial moments.
So I remember we interviewed about 2 or so years. You don't even remember this, but I remember the first thing you said to me is, "I'm a BHP shareholder, so tell me what's going on here."
Yeah, yeah.
And that's actually
I still am a pretty big BHP shareholder.
And that's a really typical reaction.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as I think Andrew has said also, you know, when you get into a cab or something like that, somebody figures out where you are, then they say, "Oh, so how's my investment going?" And you know it's meaningful for that person. So I think that is very much part of it, yes.
Okay, I never thought that President Trump could have an impact on my investments. Is he going to have an impact on my investment in BHP?
I think he has had an impact on your investment in BHP, because he's lowered the tax rate from 35 to 21.
Oh,
So that's a good thing. Now, the tariff thing is a little bit more interesting. And obviously, we live and die, not just BHP, but Australia, through free trade. And so anything that gets in the way of that, threatens that is going to be a little bit more interesting. What I'd say, though, you know, steel tariffs and so on, this is really small part of the steel market, so I don't think we need to get too excited just yet. The problem will come if the thing starts to snowball.
Peter, you're going to have to remind me, you started in 2015, right?
In the CFO role, yes.
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 And was that the same year when the progressive dividend idea was canned?
I'm not sure it was exactly the same year, but pretty much that was in that
So
that early period.
Were your fingerprints over that decision, which wasn't well received at the time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's no doubt that, you know, the first thing as I said, we've got to make sure this company is well maintained. That's the number one use of our capital. The second thing in order is that we must have a strong balance sheet. And the third thing is we've got to have the right dividend policy. And if you don't have a balance sheet that is strong enough, and a dividend policy that is able to adapt to cycles and whatever else the world can throw at you, then I think that risks the long-term value of the company.
Okay. I think the interesting question going forward will be, you know, the sale of your oil and gas, and there's been suggestions in the press that this could result in a windfall for shareholders. Are you able to talk about that at this point in time?
Yes. Look, the piece that we're selling is the shale piece, so the onshore piece. Troubled business that has been, but now we're on our way out. We will get bids for that business in the middle of this year. We will look to complete by the end of this calendar year. So we will probably get cash bids. We may get some other forms of consideration, but let's just focus on the cash for a moment. Look, we have this capital allocation framework, And we will put the proceeds into that. And as I say, we will look, first of all, we need to look after the business, the maintenance. We have a strong balance sheet, which we more or less stay today. We want to make it a little stronger again. We've got to spend some money on the long-term value, and we know what that is, and it's not going to change in terms of capex. And therefore, there's one other home for that cash, and that's to shareholders. So if we've got a well-maintained business, if we've got a balance sheet that's more or less exactly where we want it to be, and we're spending the right amount of capital, there's only one more place for those proceeds.
Okay. Given your position, have you accumulated a lot of frequent flyer points?
You know, I've accumulated a lot of frequent flyer points, but we've managed to, I think it's really important to use those too. So I've traveled around. I pride myself in using my vacation days.